In networking, communication only works when both sides agree on one simple thing, where a message begins and where it ends. This may sound obvious, but defining message boundaries is one of the most fundamental and most misunderstood aspects of networking. Networks do not magically know how much data belongs to a single message. They do not inherently understand intent. They only move bytes. Message boundaries are what allow those bytes to become distinct messages rather than an endless stream of noise. Message boundaries define how a receiver knows that one message is complete and the next one begins. They turn continuous transmission into discrete communication. Without message boundaries, there are no messages, only an unstructured flow of data. So what are message boundaries? At their core, message boundaries are the rules that separate one message from another during transmission. They tell the receiving endpoint when it has received a full unit of meaning and can stop reading, pass the message, and act on it. A message boundary answers a very specific question: how do I know I have the whole message? This is not a philosophical question. It is a practical one that every networked system must solve. Some systems define message boundaries explicitly, others define them implicitly, but every system defines them somehow. Think of a conversation where words never pause and sentences have no punctuation. Even if you understand the language, meaning becomes difficult to extract. Message boundaries are the punctuation of networking. Now let's look at how message boundaries work. There are several common ways boundaries are established. One approach is length-based boundaries. The message includes information that tells the receiver how many bytes belong to the message. The receiver reads exactly that amount and stops. This is like being told, the next sentence is exactly 20 words long. Another approach is delimiter-based boundaries. A specific marker indicates the end of a message. The receiver reads until it sees that marker. This is similar to reading until you reach a period at the end of a sentence. A third approach is implicit boundaries, defined by the protocol or transport behavior. Some systems treat each received unit as a complete message by design. In these cases, the transport itself preserves message boundaries. Each approach has trade-offs. Length-based boundaries are precise but require careful bookkeeping. Delimiter-based boundaries are flexible but vulnerable to ambiguity if delimiters appear in content. Implicit boundaries are simple but limit how messages can be transmitted. The choice of boundary strategy directly affects how systems behave under load, failure, and scale. This brings us to why message boundaries matter. Message boundaries are essential because networks do not guarantee clean delivery. Data may arrive in chunks, it may be split, it may be combined, it may arrive slower or faster than expected. Without clear boundaries, a receiver cannot distinguish between incomplete messages and complete ones. It cannot know when to wait, when to process, or when to discard data. Boundaries are also critical for correctness. Processing a partial message can lead to corrupted state, incorrect actions, or security vulnerabilities. Processing multiple messages as one can cause equally serious errors. From a performance perspective, boundaries determine buffering behavior. They influence memory usage, latency, and throughput. A system that waits too long for boundaries may introduce delay. A system that processes too eagerly may act on incomplete information. Message boundaries also shape error handling. Timeouts exist because boundaries may never arrive. Retries exist because complete messages may not be reconstructed. Back pressure exists because too many incomplete messages may accumulate. Now let's examine the defining characteristics of message boundaries. First, message boundaries are contractual. Both sender and receiver must agree on how boundaries are defined. If they do not, communication fails, even if the data itself is correct. Second, message boundaries are independent of transport behavior. The way data is transmitted does not necessarily reflect message boundaries. A single message may arrive in pieces. Multiple messages may arrive together. Boundaries exist at the logical level, not the physical one. Third, message boundaries introduce state. Receivers must track how much of a message has been received so far. This state must be managed carefully, especially under concurrency and failure. Fourth, Message boundaries interact directly with time. Waiting too long for a boundary may block progress. Waiting too little may cause premature processing. This is why timeouts are inseparable from boundary handling. Finally, message boundaries influence security. Attackers often exploit boundary confusion. By manipulating how messages are split or combined, they can trigger parsing errors, resource exhaustion, or unintended behavior. All of this leads to important implications for network behavior. Congestion affects message boundaries because delayed segments may postpone message completion. Packet loss affects boundaries because missing pieces prevent reconstruction. Reordering affects boundaries because messages may complete out of sequence. In distributed systems, boundary handling often determines system stability. Poor boundary management can lead to cascading failures, memory leaks, or stalled processing. Good boundary management allows systems to degrade gracefully under stress. Understanding message boundaries also explains why different protocols behave so differently. Some favor simplicity, some favor flexibility, some favor strict guarantees. These differences often come down to how boundaries are defined and enforced. Message boundaries are not an afterthought, they are a core design decision. They determine when meaning is complete. They determine when action can begin. They determine how systems recover from uncertainty. Messages give networks something to say. Structure gives messages meaning. Boundaries give messages form. Without boundaries, networking collapses into ambiguity. With boundaries, communication becomes reliable. That is message boundaries.